Welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays talk about and review their favorite Star Wars content while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers. And Bradley, you just started watching Rings of Power this week.
I remembered it was a show that exists.
Yes.
And I was like, you know what? I'm not working anymore. Let me start catching up on some shows that I have neglected / forgot existed. And Rings of Power was one of them because it popped up on my Amazon because I recently decided to buy all 5 seasons of The Simple Life on Amazon Prime so that I could watch them. They're $4 a piece, by the way, so if anybody's interested, they're super cheap and iconic to watch. But I saw that on there and I was like, you know what? Let me watch Rings of Power. And I was like, oh, this is pretty good.
The second season is very good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I just forgot it was a show that existed, though. That was my problem with the first season.
Yeah, so the reason I bring up Rings of Power, Bradley, is did you know that earlier this week there was a Variety article where they asked someone at Amazon, are you going to continue the show, based on the viewership data that we've got? And this person basically looked at the person that I guess was interviewing them and was like, well, yeah, when you have a long, big franchise like this, it's a long-term investment. We're committed to putting out other seasons of this show, right, even despite the negative backlash, because we know that millions of people, like 150 million people, have engaged with the second season since it came out. Obviously, we can't measure our numbers based on the first week. Wouldn't that be fucking nice?
So I was going to save this for our Acolyte episodes, but now that you bring it up...
I just need to talk about this article.
Okay, so now that you bring this up...
In the context of the Acolyte.
Yes, so now that you bring this up, I literally had the same thought process as I was watching Rings of Power, and it was, the show, the first season at least, was just okay, right? And it wasn't bad. I mean, I didn't think it was bad at all. I thought it was okay. The amount of money that they spent on the first season alone, it's just astronomical. No one in the history of television, they've never spent this much money on a TV show. I compare that to the excuse of why people say that the Acolyte was canceled or whatever. It was because, it was too expensive.
That's
and blah,
a common
blah, blah.
one.
No, that's just not true, because Disney has fuck you money, and you're telling me that they couldn't be like, oh, whoa, you guys are spending too much money on this budget or whatever. Like, fuck off. Like, that's not true. Like, I'm sorry. You can never tell me that Disney is like, oh no, the show was too expensive, that's why we canceled it. That's never going to be a thing that you can convince me is real.
If they had wanted to make it work, they could have made it work. And I think
100%.
that the reason I bring this up, particularly in the context of Star Wars, is it came up again this week in some context, I can't remember, that The Mandalorian Season 4 was also canceled. That one was actually canceled and reworked into the movie. But they were making a Season 4 and they stopped. And so... right now, it's frustrating because Disney has set up a whole bunch of different things with Star Wars TV and isn't really following through on any of them anymore. And now I get that we're all frustrated. The whole reason we're doing a comic this week is because we wanted to do something that's not a fucking TV show, because they did saturate the market with it. But on the other hand, we have no idea what their plans are. The only things we know that are coming are the second season of The Acolyte, Skeleton Crew, and the second season of Ahsoka, which won't even be for 2 or 3 years from now.
Wait, say that again. You said the second season of The Acolyte.
Sorry, the second season of Ahsoka, which is coming 2 or 3 years from now. So we don't know what the plan is. And obviously there's Celebration is coming up in April, so they may announce more long-term plans then. Or they might not. They might repeat the mistake of 2021 and announce a whole bunch of stuff that isn't going to happen. Because at the very least, things they announce at Celebration have a tendency to actually materialize.
Right, because it's far enough along in the pipeline that usually they can be like, well, we've already made season 3 of The Bad Batch. We're just not telling you that it's done yet.
The deals have been
thing.
inked.
Yeah.
You've already signed a contract with Daisy Ridley to get her back as Rey.
100%.
You can announce Rey.
Right.
Yeah,
she's legally locked in. We can safely announce this.
If it gets to a Disney investor call, there's a chance it might not happen. If it makes it to Celebration,
it's far
that's
enough
fucking happening. That's happening.
I agree.
They are committed to making that happen. And I don't know. I was just reading that article, particularly in light of the things that Rings of Power gets whacked for are things like it's very expensive and the viewership numbers aren't amazing and it has women and people of color in it, which is terrible, apparently, and totally breaks Tolkien lore. Only if you're a fucking alt-right fascist who's weirdly attached to Lord of the Rings, in which case, tell me you don't understand Tolkien's mythology without telling me you don't understand Tolkien's mythology. But I will say, in the broader context, I get that also Amazon has different metrics for success than Disney does. And all of this continues to lead me back to my hope and my theory that we will see more Acolyte in some form. That story is going to continue somehow.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure how it's going to continue.
Yeah.
And it may even be possible that once they've made it through Andor season 2 and Skeleton Crew, that then they might greenlight the second season. It's entirely possible they might wait to greenlight a new season of The Acolyte until
for sure.
some of this is like actually passed. But we can't talk about The Acolyte too long. I just wanted to talk about that particular article.
Sure.
Because I think that particular article, is at least that particular quote from that person at Amazon where they talked about long-term engagement with a property. Because I think that's a thing Disney broadly, not just Lucasfilm, Disney broadly is really bad at understanding. Yeah. That looking at their Marvel stuff, their Disney stuff, their Star Wars stuff, they are really bad at oversaturating the market, and so people don't sit with these things like they should. See what happened to Solo, A Star Wars Story. Anyway, we are sick of TV because they did too much of it and it burned us out. And so now we're taking some time in the middle of happy Atlanta Pride, by the way, Bradley.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
This just worked out that you are only sneaking away for just a little bit to record this episode.
And it's good that we have a bite-sized thing that we have to record, because otherwise I'd be like, oh, I have to spend all weekend recording a hour-and-a-half long episode of the Acolyte review instead of a nice solid 45 of Star Wars Inquisitors, And
it's only going to be like 45 because we spent 10 minutes talking about that Variety article up at the top. There you go. Yes, happy Pride to everyone in Atlanta. When you're listening to this, Pride has just ended. So happy being hungover.
Yeah, I'm sleeping right now, actually. You're listening to this and I'm passed out in my bed.
Well, what are we covering today? Quickly, so that you can go back to enjoying the fruits of your gay labor.
Today we're talking about Star Wars Inquisitors, the Marvel miniseries, issue number 3.
Yes, and all 4 of them are out now.
Yes, and I have not read the 4th one, so I will read it
I have also
next week.
Not read the 4th one, so we don't know how this ends.
We don't know how it ends, so now we can catch up to now we're both on the same playing field, and we know all the same information, and I don't have to be like, oh, I don't know if that's going to be a thing anymore.
Yeah. There's one particular thing we'll talk about that I'm kind of like, maybe you should have clarified this earlier in the comic.
I know what you're talking about. But we'll
you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, issue number 3 of Inquisitors, the Marvel Limited series, is called Nowhere to Run. The creative team is all the same as the first 2 issues, so I'm not going to run over them again. 2 mysterious travelers, a Dalatin and a Mirialan, are gambling aboard a casino ship over Glee Ansem. And the guy that they're gambling with is like, teehee, I know where Tensu Run is, but you didn't beat me in the card game, so you don't get to know the information. Upon hearing this, the Dalatin and the Mirialan reveal themselves to, in fact, be the 9th and 7th sister, who fucking murder a bunch of people, drag the information out of the guy, and then fucking murder him. Meanwhile, Tensu Run and Pan Delisek are at an abandoned temple that they're going to convert to a Jedi temple. 9th sister and 7th sister go back to talk to Darth Vader. They basically explain that their plan is to do a terrorism, and when Tensu Run intervenes, they are going to grab him. This plan works, apparently. So, good for them. Pan Delisek and Tensu Run duel the 9th and 7th sisters. They win, and then Tensu Run is like, maybe it's time I meet your master, like a dumbass. And that's issue 3.
I like it. I love when you said do a terrorism.
They do a terrorism.
No, it's true. They do. I just find it funny that you said it like that. That just...
Yes, they do a terrorism at the end of this. They release like a gas spores or something that they've collected from the Badlands, and it makes people fight each other.
Sure. I'll believe it.
I mean, I've seen this trope before of gas that makes people fight. Interesting that they specified it's like from the Badlands or whatever, but okay, sure. What did you think of this issue, Bradley?
I thought this is really good. This is definitely my favorite out of the three that we've read. Now, to be fair, it's because we dig evil ladies doing evil things, you know?
Yes.
So that's always going to be a top tier adventure for me is whenever you have women doing bad things in Star Wars. I love that, and they can never do any wrong, no matter how bad it is. That all being said, I like how it kind of ends on a cliffhanger a little bit. You know, you're like, "Ooh, I wonder what's gonna happen," even though we know what's gonna happen. But it's kind of like at least the fight this time was not a singular page of fighting. It was, I think, 3 or 4 pages of fighting, which is
Yeah,
great.
we're gonna get to that at the end because I have a note to talk about that lightsaber duel, that four-way lightsaber duel at the end.
Yeah. I think it's because there is 4 of them. That's why it's so it had to be the way. But I like it. Again, Darth Vader pops up one more time and is like, you know what? Maybe I should leave it up to the ladies this time. And he's like, you guys have pretty sound plan. Let's just hope it goes well for you too, because it didn't go well for the last guy. So
Yeah, yeah, I liked it a lot. I do miss the speech bubble, the like narration bubbles, because there aren't any in this one.
oh,
So we don't really get that much insight into the ninth sister and the seventh sister through like monologuing to the audience. A lot of the
right.
insight into these two is their conversations with each other and
Mhm.
also just how in sync they kind of are with each other. Knowing these two characters separately, I can definitely see how them teaming up would make a lot of sense.
And it's actually very interesting. So it jogged my memory too, like when I was watching this, like or when I was reading this, that I was thinking about things that happened in the Rise of the Red Blade novel because
Yes.
Seventh Sister was such a bitch to Iskat, and I just find it funny that like she's such a bitch to Iskat, but then like she teams up with the Ninth Sister. They're like, "Oh, our minds are in sync. We're about to like do this together." And I'm like, "Are they friends? Like, are they
They are
genuine friends?"
friends. They are
Like,
actual
I
friends.
think that's kind of funny. Like, because Inquisitors hate
Have
each
you
other, obviously,
seen
but
have you seen that meme that's like two queens coming together to discuss how to maximize their joint slay? Have you seen that?
No.
Okay, that's what this is.
Yes, for sure.
They're maximizing their joint slay.
I
And actually,
love it.
I have a note for the panel where, what is his name? Yorgis. Yorgis is the guy that they're gambling with at the start. And the panel where they say, "Thank you, Yorgis. We will give Tensu Run your regards," and the seventh sister decapitates him. My note on that panel is slay your enemies.
Well, it's just funny because Seventh Sister is actually slaying. She's got like an actual dress on and like she's got this fancy hat thing going on. Like she looks like she fits in with this like crowd of like clearly elites, gambling at a casino vibe, right? Like she's got her like super couture outfit on, and then Ninth Sister just has a hood over her head and a
And
cloak.
she's clearly wearing black under it, like in those
Yeah.
last two panels. But yeah, the seventh sister is just like, I am absolutely slaying with this outfit.
Yeah, she's like, if we're gonna be undercover, I might as
I'm
well.
gonna have fun with it.
Right, exactly. Because where did she get
Uh.
this outfit from? I love it. It's so couture. It's so chic.
So Glee Ansem, which is the planet that they are hovering over, that is the homeworld of the Nautilans. So it is Kit Fisto's homeworld.
I was gonna say that's probably why there was at least 2 of them at the table when they
There was at
were
least two of them at the
gambling. Yeah,
table because that's their planet. That's where they're from.
that makes so much sense.
I do want to mention, I said on episode 1, I was a little, 1 or 2, I was a little unclear on where this fell in the timeline. This is pre-Fallen Order.
Okay, because I looked it up and I think Wikipedia is confused a little bit because, or this could be an error for 2
Wikipedia
reasons.
does also make them. For
Yeah,
all I cite them as a good resource of compiling information, they do make errors when they assume stuff.
So I scanned every single panel, like painstakingly, looking at the Ninth Sister's art, right? Because she's the key factor here in the timeline.
Yeah, because of her arms
Her
is what
arms.
we're talking about. By the way, in case you're
Yes.
confused, light spoilers for Jedi Fallen Order, she does lose an arm in Jedi Fallen Order
So
and
this is where it
has it
gets tricky.
replaced.
So throughout the entire comic, she has both of her arms. They are clearly her
Correct.
natural, orange hands or whatever it is her skin color is. In the cover for the
Yep.
thing, unfortunately, her hand is missing. She's got her red replacement hand, like that matches her red replacement foot that we learned in the Darth Vader comics gets cut off by the sixth brother. This, I think the cover's just an error
The
to an
cover
extent.
is an error, yes.
Okay,
Now, I
because
had the same
yeah,
journey because I went back and looked at the cover again. And I'm like, no, she's definitely got the red hand on the cover.
but yeah, throughout the rest of the comic though,
But
she
the, if
does
you,
not.
I noticed somewhere it was the second page. There's a tiny little bit of her hand that we can see, and I went, oh, wait a minute. So I scanned through the whole comic looking at her arms, and I went, oh yeah, no, she's got both arms. So the actual text of this comic clearly takes place prior to Jedi Fallen Order.
Right. And when I was reading Wikipedia or whatever, it claimed that it's kind of in between Fallen Order. And I was like, well, that just can't be true because if she still has her hand, she just like, I mean, I don't know what now. I don't know the next issue. I haven't looked at it yet. So if she's missing her hand in the next issue, then that means that Fallen Order takes place in between the two issues. But I mean, also not. I don't know. It's kind of confusing, but we'll find out, I guess,
Yeah, I can
next week.
firmly place this, at least this issue, prior to the events
Prior.
of Fallen Order.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I guess it would make sense though, like if they're just constantly looking through for all these people. Like again, I haven't played Fallen Order. I don't know the timeline of events, but I do know that if the whole point of the thing obviously is that they're hunting down Jedi, obviously still.
Yes, that's
It
the Inquisitorius' gig.
right. I don't find it that weird that this small story of them finding Tensu Run takes place right before they start hunting down Cal Kestis, which is makes sense.
So anyway, they are a sleigh, and we cut to Tensu Run and Pan Delisek having this conversation in the temple. And now we need to talk about the thing that confused me in this issue. What exactly is the relationship between Tensu Run and Pan Delisek? Because I've been joking about this being a polycule for the last two episodes. Tensu refers to Pan as brother. Now, the first time I read this,
Uh-huh.
I went, oh, so he's his actual brother. That would have been nice to know back in issue one.
Right.
It would have been nice to have had this established clearly at the top and not halfway through. But then I remembered that in issue one, he also refers to that monk as brother, whatever the monk's name was.
Right.
And then there's a line later on when they are fighting the Inquisitors. The Ninth Sister tells Pan, I pray you aren't as chatty as your master. Pan responds, Tensu isn't my master, more of a forced upon brother.
Right.
And then I remembered that Tensu was a Jedi who was taken away from his family. So I think these are not biologically related brothers or even referring to each other as brother in the terms that they think of each other as siblings. I think that what's going on is Pan is kind of in Tensu Run's little order, so he's referring to him as brother because that's what he would refer to people in the order as. But it's not very clear what's
Right.
going on.
So
Like,
I consider it the same way where when Obi-Wan is fighting with Anakin and he says, I considered you a brother, it's kind of the same vibe.
I think it's more of a monastic order vibe.
yeah, it's like they're brothers isn't like not siblings, but brothers in that we have a shared common group of people that live together and
Yes.
we're co-workers, but we're not co-workers because we're more of a family because technically we're in this religious cult, so we're like together. I don't know. It's confusing, but yes, I believe it's more of a brother, like yeah, like how monks call each other like brother so and so, brother so and so. So I think it's more like that.
Because I got the impression visually from Pan in the first issue, I got the impression that he wasn't necessarily part of this group. Like he was like the Han Solo of the group.
Yeah.
Like he's there, but he's not really part of it. He's just kind of helping out because that's what his visual design kind of implied. Like, he was very distinctly different from the monk in the first 2 issues. But now it's like, oh no, he actually is. Again, this is continuing one of my main critiques of the comic, which is I wish it would give us some more clear exposition.
Yeah.
About who Tensu Run and Pandelasek and this group is. Like,
Yeah,
it's
they
a little
both have
hard
sabers.
to piece
They're both
together.
like, yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Pan has a lightsaber, like his own lightsaber. Like,
Yeah, so he's clearly just another Jedi.
you would think he's just another Jedi Knight, but the way he talks and the way that he, like, interacts with people, it's not clear.
That's
if
true.
he's a
I guess,
Jedi or if he joined later on, because they have that whole sequence
where they're in the temple
he's
together.
walking through with the lightsaber. It's a little bit later.
Oh.
And Tensu has this whole plan to train younglings. And he says to Pan, quote, perhaps when the young ones are in study, you can join them. Because he's trying to, like, train him up. To which Pan says, if you weren't a legend in waiting, I'd tell you exactly what I think of your idea.
Interesting. I guess I never considered that he's just a guy.
He's just a guy who has a lightsaber who might be force sensitive and, like, wasn't found by the Jedi. Again, this is not clear.
That's true too. Right. That could be it.
At least by issue 3, it's not clear who these people are.
Yeah.
Tensu we have pretty clearly. We know what Tensu Run is about.
Right. But the monk guy and then this guy, yeah, it's a little confusing. I also think, well, in what media do they explain that people who don't or aren't trained at a young age but are still force sensitive work at the temple or something like that as, like, staff or something like that? Like, they still do stuff?
So that was a Legends idea.
Okay.
I forget what canon does. In Legends, if Padawans aren't selected by, like, their 13th birthday or something,
right.
This was from the Jude Watson books, they go to work for, like, the agricultural corps. I'm not sure what they do with with Padawans who basically wash out. I'm not sure what they do with them in canon.
Because they don't let them keep their lightsaber, that's for sure.
They don't let them keep their lightsabers. That is a definite thing.
Yeah, we know that for sure. So
the only person we know who's been allowed to keep his lightsaber after leaving the Jedi Order was Count Dooku. Because Count Dooku was such a big deal, and he was so close with them that they were like, yeah, okay, fine, we trust you to keep your lightsaber. Bad idea, guys.
Yeah, I don't know.
Real bad idea.
But okay, interesting. I like the idea though that he's just like a random guy that Tensu found.
I think he's just a guy.
Yeah, and he was just like, hey, you kind of have some ability, but I just need people to help me restart the order. So I just need anybody at this point. And if you even have a glimmer of force ability, then I need you, kind of thing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, this issue is really good, and this issue is delving a bit into their relationship, which is nice. I just don't quite understand, why is Pan here? What is he doing here?
Well, he's here to fight the Ninth Sister. That's the only reason why he's here.
Yeah, I mean, plot-wise, the only reason he's here is to keep this from being a 2-on-1.
Right, because then it's going to be like, okay, we get it. Tensu's not that powerful. Like, come on. Like I can believe he can take on the 5th brother. I can believe he can take on the 7th sister. But can he take on 2 or 3 or 4 at the same time? I guess we'll find out next week, but, you know.
The only person we have seen take on 2 Inquisitors at the same time and win is Ahsoka Tano.
Right.
And Ahsoka Tano was trained by Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Exactly. So
unless you were trained by Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, you will not be taking on 2 Inquisitors at once. Good luck.
I guess, or unless you're Darth Maul, and then you can kill 2 of them at the same time.
He does not take on the 3 of them at the same time. He's with Kanan and Ahsoka.
But he kills 2 of them, right?
Separately.
Oh, okay.
Separately from each other.
Fair.
He kills them one at a time.
To be fair, one of them kind of did it themselves, but...
yeah, the 8th brother dies because dumbass decided to helicopter away with a broken lightsaber, and the 7th sister was incapacitated.
Right.
And then by Ezra, and then Maul killed her. Hey, if you guys want to listen to a podcast that will go into a lot of detail about the Star Wars Rebels stuff that we're sort of glossing over, I highly recommend Dark Side Divas, who recently just did Twilight of the Apprentice.
There you go.
Parts 1 and 2. You can listen to both of those episodes.
Some of the best episodes. Good. There you go.
I have to talk about this Vader scene, and not for the reason of, like, Vader's particularly well written in it. I actually think Vader is much more chill with the Inquisitors in this comic than he is with them in any other Inquisitor-centric piece of media we have seen.
Yep.
Like, I'm not scared of Vader in this comic.
No, he seems too chill.
He's way too chill. But the way some of his dialogue is written, he has there's a particular segment where the Ninth Sister and Seventh Sister are making their pitches, and Vader says just the word logical. And because I've been on a Star Trek journey for the last couple of months, I've just watched the entire original series, animated series, and the first 4 movies. From the point Vader says logical, I can't not hear Leonard Nimoy's voice reading the Vader dialogue.
I also just like how the two sisters are like, this is our plan, this is what we're gonna do, and it's gonna work. And he's like, yeah, that actually does make sense. You guys are right. Instead of being like, no, my plan makes more sense. This is what I want to do. He's like, yeah, you guys go do that. That's actually a good idea. Like,
This is a pretty reasonable plan.
pretty reasonable. You guys should do that. Now don't fucking fail, because I'll kill you. But I mean, go for it. Like, he's chill about it.
Now, with regard to the heist rules, this is not a heist, but I do want to bring this up. The reason heist rules to me kind of don't apply to this conversation, because they are explaining the plan before they execute the plan. And the plan, at least in concept, works. It ultimately fails because they lose the lightsaber duel, so it still kind of follows the heist rules, which, if you are not familiar, the heist rules are that if you say the plan and then the characters do the plan will go off the rails. If the characters don't say the plan and then they do the plan will succeed. If they say the plan, intercut with scenes of them doing the plan will work up until the point where they stop intercutting them together. The reason it doesn't really apply here is because this is, 1, not a heist. 2, it's exposition to set context.
Right.
It's the Hitchcockian showing the bomb under the table, which I think is easily confused for explaining the plan. But then we know for the entire scene of Tensu and them in the market, which is not terrifically long, once the gas shows up, we know what the gas is going to do. So it's not surprising when the gas goes off and is making people fight. And I also think it helps in this comic, which is pretty confusing comic, to be able to have had a character turn to the audience and say, we're going to dose people with gas that makes them fight each other so that he will intervene. I think
because if you didn't have that, if you didn't have that little dialogue, I would not know what's going on.
Yeah, I would be like, why can't the Seventh Sister do this all the time? Why does she need to do this now? Anyway, then they have a lightsaber duel, and it actually is a really good lightsaber duel.
I love it. Well, I like when you actually fight. Like,
well, in lightsaber duels, like, 1, it would be nice if they actually fought. Not in the Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul way, where they have the entire fight in their heads and then it's 3 moves and it's awesome as hell and one of the best fights. But then there's times that are like one-sided curb stomp battles that have no reason to be one-sided curb stomp battles, like in issue 2, and I'm just, yeah. The other thing is that lightsaber duels should be about the participants, not about the moves.
Right.
And this one has a lot of good insight into Tensu becoming more arrogant and more cocky, which is culminating in his boast at the end when he's like, I'm gonna go, maybe it's time for me to meet Vader. And I'm like, bro, you have no idea what you're asking. You have none. But Pan is very business focused and effective, and Tensu's just having a great time. Like, he is quipping. It's great. I love this duel. I think it's fantastic.
I do too. I think it's great. And also, I was reading the dialogue between them and like them fighting or whatever. I was reading it in Sarah Michelle Gellar's voice. So I was, because she's the voice of the Seventh Sister in Rebels, for any of you who don't know that. And so I was getting that vibe the whole time. Like, they're like quipping each other while they're like fighting, and they're talking, like, you know, the classic talk to each other while you fight kind of trope.
Yes.
And I love it. And so this would have been so fucking good as a Tales of the Inquisitors.
It really would have been. This particular fight, if you'd have brought back Sarah Michelle Gellar for this fight, it would have been
so good. Like, Disney, why are you taking this from us? Like, it's
because it's almost kind of. I hate to bring it up because fuck Joss Whedon, but it is almost kind of Buffy the Vampire Slayer-ish.
Yeah.
Reversed, which would have been so funny to see if Sarah Michelle Gellar had been the voice of the Seventh Sister, because Tensu Run's just kind of quipping at her.
Yeah, I love it.
And she's doing these, I am the Seventh Sister and Inquisitor, and your head will be mine.
Yeah, I love it.
My head, that's not going to yield the friendship I desire for us. Like
It's so
he's
fun.
buff equipping at her.
Yeah, it's so fun. And I love it. And I do kind of, well, she gets sliced at the end, so she's kind of injured. It's unclear the ninth sister, she also gets hit, I think. It's a
Yeah,
little
she gets hit
unclear.
in the leg.
Right, but we don't see her like collapse or fall, so it's kind of hard to tell like where she's kind of standing in this
Yeah,
battle.
she's just gone. Like in
Yeah,
the last panel, she's gone.
yeah, and then so is what's his face, the other guy.
And
So
Alicent.
yeah, so I feel like, I mean, obviously the next issue is just going to open up with them there, and then Vader's just going to show up with the Grand Inquisitor and the Fifth Brother. But I don't know. I feel like it was a little open ended, but I also feel like, yeah, you're right. Like they kind of end the duel, but then Tensu's just like, okay, I'll wait for everybody else to come. Like, what are
Yep.
you doing, dude?
Yep. I'm like, you are so stupid. But again, he's becoming more arrogant because remember
Yep.
back in issue 1, he was really unsteady and really like, I'm not really sure if I want to do this. I'm not really sure what this means. And then he murders the Sloth Man in issue 2. And then he's like, whoop, nope, I am the best at everything now.
I love it.
And that's it. I like this issue a lot.
This
It
was
was
very
short
good.
and snacky, but it was it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't with the Grand Inquisitor issue. It felt like the joy of that issue was listening to the Grand Inquisitor monologue the whole time and watch him be an idiot on main. Whereas this issue is just like, let's just watch these two evil ladies joint slay. And
I
you
love
know
it.
what? I'll take it. I have some issues with how the overarching plot is being handled. But every time these two are on screen, they are completely in sync, and it
I
is
love it.
beautiful to watch. It's a rare instance of Inquisitors actually getting along, but if two Inquisitors are going to get along, it's going to be these two.
And they're doing a good job too. Like the thing is, like, if the Inquisitores worked together, like, and they didn't try to kill each other all the time, or like cap each other, or like cut off each other's legs, or whatever, all the stuff that they do, like, they would have won. They would have won. They are an elite team of red blades. Like, how could you not win? It's because they all want to fucking be the best and be in charge, and they
The
fucking
dark
suck.
side encourages selfishness.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate point of the dark side, is it encourages selfishness and it encourages self-centeredness, and it lacks any sort of empathy or compassion or even regard for the other people around you. It's centering yourself first and foremost above all else, and that's why groups of darksiders inevitably break down. That's why that happens. That's sort of the central moral of Star Wars, is that selfishness bad, selflessness not handled stupidly good. And we see that like throughout most of Inquisitors' media, is that a lot of them are very powerful, yes, but at the expense of, they're individually powerful at the expense of collective power.
Right.
And that groups of people working together can be more powerful than any one individual. That's why a handful of rebels managed to topple the entire galactic empire. Purely because they were working together. They were cooperating, they were thinking about each other in a way that the imperial fascist machine was not built for. Anyway, I love this issue a lot. Next week we're doing issue 4, and we're concluding the Inquisitors. But we need to do pluggables and move on so that Bradley can edit this episode quickly so that he can go back to Atlanta Pride. So, Bradley works on a bunch of reality TV shows. You can find them on Bravo and Peacock, including such shows as Married to Medicine, Season 10, Temptation Island, and The Circle, Season 7, the new one on Netflix. I am on a Star Wars TTRPG podcast called For Light and Dice. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. I also write gay crime thriller novels. You can find those on Kindle Unlimited. It's the Beach House Studios series. Beach House is one word, one H. Anyway, roll the socials. Thank you for listening to this episode of Gold Squadron Gays. Did Charles fuck something up? Email us at goldsquadrongays@gmail.com to let us know. You can also find us on Twitter at @GoldSquadGays, and you can find us on TikTok and Instagram at @GoldSquadronGays. You can also find us on YouTube at our Gold Squadron Gays YouTube channel, where we post full episodes of this show. Finally, if you liked the show, don't forget to rate us and give us a review on your favorite podcast platform. That allows other people to find our show. As always, thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gays, and we'll see you next week.